You're listening to the Study Legal English podcast, helping lawyers and law students become fluent in legal English. For more information, visit studylegalenglish.com. Hello and welcome to the Study Legal English podcast. I'm your host Louise, and today I'm talking to you about resources to help improve your legal English. Last week, if you listened to the show, you will have heard an interview with Pro member and Brazilian lawyer Helena Kennedy, and I'd like to announce that I was so impressed with her level of English, her level of legal English, as I'm sure you were as well listening to her interview. It was fantastic, and she's really also got a very dedicated attitude towards studying. So I asked Helena if she would like to do an internship with me. She said yes, so Helena is now interning and she's helping me with a range of tasks. Her insights as a learner of legal English are really helpful for me to make sure that we're developing material that's really helpful for you, my listeners. So a big congratulations to Helena. If you're interested in becoming an intern with me in the future, do get in touch. Send me an email to louise@studylegalenglish.com. So today I mentioned I'm talking to you about resources to help improve your legal English. Specifically, I'm talking about podcasts to help improve your legal English listening. So I'm sure if you're a listener, if you're a regular listener of this show, you clearly like podcasts. I think you're going to like this episode. And if you're new, well, hopefully you're going to like it too. So why have I chosen this topic? Well, Stephen Horowitz, the director of online legal English programs at Georgetown University Law Center, who has been on this show twice before in episode number 81 and 107. Well, Stephen, back in May, published a post on the Georgetown Legal English blog called Legal English Resources. He shared it with me, and I also shared it on my Facebook group. I think it's a really good blog post, and certainly I'm going to link to it in the show notes for this episode. I recommend you check it out. Anyway, Stephen said to me,
"Hey Louise, I've published a list of legal English resources on the Georgetown Legal English blog, but it's fairly America-centric. I was thinking you could add some sort of list on the Study Legal English website for more English-focused resources. What do you say?" Thanks, Louise. Talk to you soon.
So, I like that clip. Thanks for that, Stephen. The problem was that this message was right in the middle of me finalising the manuscript for Practical English Language Skills for Lawyers. And that's the book that I have been co-writing with Natasha Costello, which is due for publication in 2023. The book is currently with the production team. The long process and arduous, that means difficult process of writing the book is over, and now it's over to the editors going ahead and sorting out all of the publication. So if you're not listening to this episode exactly right away, in fact, maybe you're listening to it in 2023, in which case you'll be able to go ahead and purchase that book online if you so wish to do so. Anyway, when Stephen got in touch, I had no time to do anything other than to write the book. But I thought, yes, you know what? That's a great suggestion. And you know what as well, my listeners? I often get DMs, direct messages on my Instagram. I get emails and I get messages in my Study Legal English group saying, "Louise, how can I learn legal English? What resources can I use to study legal English?" So now I do have time for this topic, and so I'm recording this episode as per Stephen's suggestion and due to high demand from you, my listeners. And in fact, there are so many resources to study legal English with. Where do I start? Well, I'm dividing these into a few podcast episodes. I'm starting this week by focusing on podcasts to improve your listening. Next week, I'm going to tell you about top resources to improve your speaking, and I'll be continuing this theme. And I want to say that I'm narrowing these resources down to those which have been created in England by English people or which focus on the English legal system. Why am I doing this? Well, because if you want a list of American-focused resources, You heard it from Stephen, you heard it from the horse's mouth, as we say in English, you heard it directly from the source. You can simply check out Stephen's list. He's already done it. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, as the saying goes, which means doing something which has already been done. Stephen's already got that list. I don't want to do it again, so my resources are going to focus on the English perspective in general. And before we get started, if there are some podcasts that you enjoy listening to and which I haven't mentioned, let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening on the studylegalenglish.com/episode 122, the website link for this episode, leave a comment below on the post. You can also DM me on Instagram or Facebook. And if you're doing this, if you're sending me a message, here's a crazy thought for you listeners. Why not do it as a voice note so that I can include you in a future podcast episode, just like Stephen? Alternatively, if that's really not your thing, send me an email to louise@studylegalenglish.com. Remember that if you're a Podcast Lite or Pro member, you can get access to a downloadable transcript for this episode. You can also get the synced transcript, which is available on the website page, studylegalenglish.com/episode 122. And as well, Pro members get access to further resources right there on that page. If you're not a member but you want to get ahead with your legal English, visit studylegalenglish.com/pricing to sign up. One other thing, and I promise you're going to like this, my listeners. You're like, Louise, come on, get on with it. Well, hang on a second. One other thing that I have to mention is that I've created a playlist on Spotify, including all of the podcast episodes that I mentioned today. Just head to studylegalenglish.com/episode 122 to find that playlist. And in fact, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to find a link to that playlist if you go to the link in my bio. And I'll certainly be posting that link in the Facebook group. In that playlist, I've included the episodes that I've mentioned in this show in the order that I mention them. And I've also included an introductory episode from my podcast. That's episode 100, where I explain what this podcast is in case you're a new listener to the show and you want to know a bit about it. And make sure you listen until the end, where I'm going to give you a couple of ways to max out your listening with this podcast. All right, so now, thank you for your patience. Let's get started. Why is listening important for you, my listeners? Well, the more you listen to people speaking legal English, the more vocabulary you will acquire, the more you will understand, the more phrases and sentence structures you will learn to use in your own speaking. Lawyers need to be able to understand legal English when dealing with their clients, and they need to be able to understand it when speaking with other lawyers. We can say it is essential to listen to legal English to improve your language skills. And as you very well know, my listeners, podcasts, I don't need to tell you this, podcasts are a great way to access spoken language. So let's dive right into my recommendations. Okay, firstly, I know I said I'm focusing on English resources, but I do want to mention very quickly at the beginning a couple of US podcasts. Firstly, the US Law Essentials Law and Language podcast. That's by Stephen Horowitz and Daniel Edelson, which helps you improve your English and better understand US law and American legal culture. Stephen's been on the show, so has Daniel. Daniel was in episode 94. A link to that episode and an episode from the US Law Essentials Law and Language podcast is in the Spotify playlist. Secondly, I also want to mention the How I Lawyer podcast. It's hosted by Jonah Perlin. This podcast is dedicated to learning about the legal profession by learning from the stories of those who do it. Each week, the podcast interviews a lawyer about what they do, why they do it, and how they do it well. And Jonah has also been on my show in episode 117, an episode from Jonah's podcast and the episode where he's interviewed on my show. Both of those are on that Spotify playlist. Okay, so now let's focus more on podcasts from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, sunny old England. Number 1, UK Law Weekly. This is a weekly podcast. on recent legal decisions and news by Marcus Cleaver. Marcus reads at a reasonable pace and in a British accent. So if that's your thing, which I'm guessing it could be as you listen to this podcast, then it could be for you. The episodes contain loads of legal English vocabulary because he's summarising cases before the courts. The good thing about this podcast is that the episodes are short. They're around 8 minutes long. So if you're one of those people who's like, oh, I just don't have time to learn legal English, well, try listening to that podcast even when you're on a coffee break. The problem is that I would say with this particular podcast is that there are no transcripts. So if you don't understand something and you need to check it, you might have some difficulty. On my Spotify playlist, I've included a couple of episodes from this podcast, which I think are particularly interesting. There's a case where Google got sued for breaching data protection law, and a case involving Uber and the rights of Uber workers. That's two really cutting edge topics about data protection and about rights of what we call gig economy workers, workers in this sort of new evolving format of employment where we're not really sure if the employees are employees or whether they're freelance. So I highly recommend those. Number 2, BBC Law in Action podcast. Law in Action is actually a BBC Radio 4 programme as well as a podcast. BBC Radio 4 is a radio station which broadcasts spoken word programmes, not music. So if you live in the UK, you can listen to it on your radio, if you do indeed have a radio. But for everyone else, you can listen to it on your podcast app. This show has been around since 1984. Wow, that's a long time. It's presented by Joshua Rosenberg, who is one of the UK's most well-known legal commentators, and he's got a very clear English accent. On this podcast, you can listen to interviews with leading legal figures and discussions about current legal issues in the news. Episodes are always 30 minutes long, or thereabouts. So this is great if you want a longer listen. But again, unfortunately, there are no transcripts. I've included an episode in my Spotify playlist about a hot topic which is going on in Europe at the moment, and that is rules and regulations around riding electronic scooters. I don't know about you, my dear listeners. I don't know what it's like in your country, but certainly in Italy, I can tell you, in the town where I live in Lecco, this is something that's a huge trend. These scooters, which are sort of these platforms with wheels that you can ride around on, and which nowadays they are electric, they're becoming incredibly popular. And because they're electric, they actually go really, really fast. And it's unclear whether people should ride them on the road, like a vehicle, or on the pavement, like pedestrians. So this episode that I've included on the Spotify playlist is dealing with that particular issue. Number 3, Women in Law Talking Law. And that's a podcast hosted by barrister Sally Penny. In this podcast, Sally interviews leading legal figures in the UK as they discuss the highs and lows of their career, plus the challenges and realities of the legal profession. Episodes range from 20 minutes to a full hour. So that's great if you like a range of episodes that can actually be quite long. The downside again is that there are no transcripts. I've included 2 episodes from this podcast on my Spotify playlist. Firstly, a particularly inspiring episode, in my opinion, is the one with Lady Hale. That's Baroness Lady Hale of Richmond. Lady Hale, dubbed the Beyoncé of the legal world, is Britain's first female law lord, the first woman to serve on the UK Supreme Court, and its first woman president. So if you're a woman and you want a role model of a woman who has literally made it to the top of the legal world as literally the president of the UK Supreme Court, check out that episode. She's an incredibly down-to-earth woman, incredibly intelligent, and I highly recommend listening to it. I've also included an interview with Baroness Helena Kennedy, QC, that stands for Queen's Counsel, in the playlist. Why? Well, firstly, because she's one of Britain's most distinguished lawyers. She's a Scottish barrister and champions civil liberties and human rights. So if that's an area that you're interested in, you should really know about this woman. Secondly, I just mentioned it, she's Scottish. So I know that sometimes students have difficulties understanding the Scottish accent. Listening to Helena Kennedy would be great listening comprehension if you have trouble with this accent. In my opinion, her accent's really, really clear. So it's a good place to start if you have got a meeting coming up with someone Scottish, or you fancy the challenge of listening and trying to understand a new accent. Number 4, the Legally Speaking podcast, hosted by Robert Hanna. Robert Hanna is an expert in legal careers, and this podcast has many interviews with legal professionals, and it aims to provide thought-provoking episodes to help with your legal careers. The episodes range from between 20 minutes to an hour, and so they're helpful if you want to listen to long-form natural speech. The downside, again, no transcripts, to my knowledge. I've included 2 episodes from this podcast in my Spotify playlist. Firstly, an interview with Amelia Platten. Amelia is an autistic and dyspraxic future Magic Circle trainee solicitor. If you're like, what did you just say, Louise? Well, I'm going to explain to you. Autism is a condition that affects how a person thinks, feels, interacts with others. They can find social interaction difficult. And dyspraxia is a developmental coordination disorder. It affects movement and coordination. Magic Circle law firms, they are not something out of Harry Potter. They are indeed something real. They refer to the 5 most prestigious law firms headquartered in the UK. Actually, I think Daniel Edelson would probably like the fact that they're called Magic Circle law firms. He's always sort of teasing me, saying that, you know, the UK is like the land of Harry Potter and everything's sort of magical and everyone's flying around on broomsticks. I guess it's quite fitting that we call the top law firms the Magic Circle law firms. It fits with that stereotype of the UK. Anyway, if you've ever felt like you don't fit in, that you're different, or you can't do something, listen to this inspiring episode, because this is someone who's overcome many challenges literally to train in, literally one of the top law firms in the UK, if not the world. I've also included an episode with Nick Eziefula, who is a partner at a leading media law firm, and who is also a successful rapper. Yes, rapper. I mean, somebody who raps, who, does yo, 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 I am a lawyer, yo. Well, clearly I'm not a rapper, but that's the sort of thing that they do. Saying words over a beat. I've included this because maybe you have a hobby. You've got a passion that you do alongside the law, but you're worried about showing other people this hobby. This episode shows you that, it's okay to have a hobby. It's okay to have a life outside of the law, and you can even turn it into something that's not just a hobby. So that episode is included in the Spotify playlist. Number 5, Magic Circle Law Firm podcasts. Let me explain. My number 5 is actually 5 podcasts. I've mentioned previously Magic Circle law firms. Magic Circle law firms refer to the 5 most prestigious law firms headquartered in the UK. Specifically, the law firms are Allen and Overy, Clifford Chance, Freshfields Brookhurst Doringer, Linklaters, and Slaughter and May. Each of these law firms has their own podcast. These podcasts are usually well produced. They're usually on highly innovative matters such as fintech, cryptocurrency, or highly complex topics such as specific tax regimes. These podcasts are high level and they talk about technical legal matters in English. So if your level of legal English is quite advanced, if you're someone who's preparing, for example, for the TOLS Advanced exam, then checking out these podcasts might be helpful for you. The issue, as with podcasts in general, which are not aimed at language learning, is, I've mentioned it before, I sound like a broken record. I keep repeating myself, there are no transcripts. I've included an episode from each of these podcasts in my Spotify playlist for you to try them out, to get a taste for them. Right, those are all the Legal English podcasts I wanted to mention, but there's one more that I want to tell you about. This is in fact a general English podcast. It's called Luke's English Podcast. It's a brilliant general English podcast. Luke interviews people. He talks about general topics. His podcasts are long form. Over 20 minutes. They're usually, 40 minutes, an hour. They're conversational and they are very funny because Luke is actually a stand-up comedian as well. I was interviewed on his show and I've included that episode on the Spotify playlist so you can check that out. Okay, so those are all the podcasts I wanted to mention, but I did say at the beginning of this episode that if you wait until the end, I'd share with you a couple of things that you can do to max out your legal English listening with podcasts. So what can you do? I'm going to share 3 things that you can do. Firstly, listen to an episode in chunks and write down what you hear. Then check the transcript to see if you were correct. This is an amazing way to fully understand podcast episodes and to gain new vocabulary and grammar constructions. It's not only good for your listening, it's great for your speaking too, because podcasts are spoken word. They use language that's really used in speech, so you'll be able to pick up grammar and sentence constructions which you can use in your own speaking. Now, if you want to do this with my podcast, you can find some captions on YouTube videos. So you can watch 30 seconds of one of my podcasts on YouTube, you can write it down, then turn on the captions and check if you're correct. There is a little issue with this in that not all of the captions are curated on all of the episode. So if you'd like to make sure that you get all of the transcripts for all of the episodes, you can become a light or a pro member of my site. Head to studylegalenglish.com/pricing to sign up. And if you are a pro member, a further activity you can do is to then check the vocabulary list to check if there are some words that you've written down that you didn't know. You can check the definition and the example sentence to acquire that new vocabulary. A second exercise you can do is to get the transcript of the podcast episode. Obviously, if you're a member, put it into Google Translate and translate it into your own language. Then, step by step, translate it back into English. And when you've done a chunk, say 1 minute of audio, you can listen to the episode and check whether your translation is accurate. Again, this is a brilliant exercise. It's really great for building a natural and native sentence construction because as you're translating, you will be forced to translate not literally, but in the correct native way. Or if you are translating literally, you'll be able to see, that's not really how you say it. That's not how I'd properly say it in the native way. I can tell you, if you do these exercises, even just once a week, you'll have a light bulb that goes off in your head many times when you realise, I've not noticed before that this is the way to say the thing. Because when you listen to the podcast, you're passively learning. You are learning, of course, but there's something about actively engaging with the podcast that brings so much more. Because when you actively do exercises around the listening, you actually pay so much more attention to the language used and you learn a lot more. A third thing to do is to play around with the speed at which you listen to the podcast. If you enjoy listening to my podcast, if you go to my website and listen using the podcast player available on my site, you will notice a small number 1 with an X by the side of it. Click that and you can listen at half speed, double speed, and up to 4 times faster. God knows how fast that is. It must be pretty fast. Most podcast apps have this feature, and so does YouTube. On YouTube, you have to click settings and then playback speed and choose the speed you'd like to listen at. So if you're a beginner, you probably want to listen at half speed or something like 0.75. And if you are more advanced, you might want to listen at 1.25 or 1.5 speed. So go ahead, try out these 3 things to max out your legal English listening. Great, so that's the end of this episode. I hope you found it useful and learned something new. Join me next week where I'll be talking about top ways to improve your legal English speaking. Don't forget to leave a comment or get in touch with podcasts that you recommend. If you're a member, head over to studylegaleNglish.com/episode 122 for all your member benefits and where you can also find that Spotify playlist. And if you're thinking of becoming a member, go to studylegaleNglish.com/pricing to really start getting ahead with your legal English. So thanks for listening and see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Study Legal English podcast. If you really want to get ahead, why not become a member and gain access to many learning resources? Visit studylegaleNglish.com/pricing.